Okay, so the first question is 2x minus 3 equals 4. Now, we did this sort of construction method before where we start with the x and we try and construct the expression that we've got. So if we do that, the first thing that we're doing is to multiply by 2, and that will give us this. So we multiply by 2, and then after that we're going to subtract the 3, and that will give us this whole block. So then we go through this backwards and do the opposite in each case. So the opposite of minus 3 is to add 3, so we add 3 to both sides. And then once that's done, we divide both sides by 2, opposite of multiply by 2. Question 2. X over 2 plus 2 equals 7. So start from the x, we construct by dividing by 2 and then adding 2. So we do the opposite in reverse, subtract 2 from both sides, and then so that's that done, and then we multiply by 2 on both sides. And we're going to keep using that method where there is a single instance of an x. Okay, so this one is x minus 6 all over 4 minus 2 equals 5. First thing, add 2 to both sides. And now we'll multiply both sides by 4. And then add 6 to both sides. Okay, so question 4 now. Oops. Question 4. Here we have 4, x plus 5 in brackets minus 3 equals 9. So we're going to add 3 to both sides. Now we could multiply out the brackets here, but it's just as easy to divide both sides by 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. And subtract 5 from both sides, so x is minus 2. Question 5. Rx plus px minus 3 equals tx. So the first thing to notice here is that x is appearing more than once. So we can't just use this construction method. We need to gather the x terms together. So we're going to subtract this tx from both sides. So rx plus px. And we're going to add this 3 to both sides to get that over that side. So subtract tx from both sides and add 3 to both sides. Now we're going to do a common factor of x of all of these. So we get r plus p minus t equals 3. And divide both sides by this bracket, r plus p minus t. Question 6. Square root of x minus 3 over 5 minus 2 equals 1. Now what we don't want to do is to start squaring both sides. And let me tell you why. Because if we're using the construction, we start off with the x, and the first thing that we do is to subtract 3. Once we've got that x minus 3, we then divide by 5. Then we're going to square root everything that we've got so far. And then after that, we're going to subtract 2. So if we're going in reverse order, we don't square first, we add 2 to both sides first. So let's add 2 to both sides. That's that done. Now we square both sides. Three squared is 9. Now we times 5 on both sides. And now we add 3 to both sides. Okay, important to get the right order. Question 7. Square root of 4 over x minus 2 equals 3. Now this one is slightly different from question 6 because this time we haven't got this extra sort of term here. So if we do the construction, well, first of all, it's a bit more difficult because the x is on the denominator. We could do it with the construction method, but it's easier just to square both sides add 2 to both sides. Now, if this was a fraction, this 11 that we had, which is the same as 11 over 1, if we take the reciprocal of this side, we can take the reciprocal of this side. So let's take the reciprocal of the left side, in other words, turn the fraction upside down, and do the same thing on the right-hand side. That's got our x at the top now, so now we can just multiply both sides by 4. Question 8. X plus 7 over 9 plus 2x minus 3 all over 4 equals 2. So we don't like these fractions, so we're going to get rid of the fractions by multiplying both sides by 9 and both sides by 4. And the easiest way to do that is to multiply both sides by the lowest common multiple of these two things, which is 36. So we're going to multiply both sides by 36. So multiply this by 36. We're going to multiply this by 36. Oops. 2x minus 3 over 4. And we're going to multiply this by 36. Don't forget that right-hand side too. Now, 36 over 9 is 4. And 36 over 4 is 9. So we get 4x plus 7 plus 9, 2x minus 3 is 72. Now let's multiply the brackets. 4x plus 28 plus 18x minus, don't forget that minus there, 27 is 72. Gather the like terms. These are the terms with x in. We've got 22 of those. 28 minus 27 is 1. Subtract 1 from both sides. Divide both sides by 22. Okay? Question 9. 5x minus 1 all over 3 minus 2x plus 1 all over 5 equals 2. So again, lowest common multiple here is 15, so we're going to multiply both sides by 15. Don't forget to multiply the right by 15. 15 over 3 is 5. 15 over 5 is 3. And then we're going to multiply these brackets out. 5 5s are 25x here. Minus 5, don't forget that minus. Minus 3 2s are 6x. And again, minus times a plus is a minus. Minus 3 is 13. 25 minus 6 is 19x. Minus 5 minus 3 is minus 8. Add 8 to both sides. And now we divide both sides by 19. And 38 divided by 19 is 2 over 1, which is 2. So x equals 2. Question 10. 1 over x minus 1 over y equals 1 over z. Now there's two ways to do this. Trying to get x on its own, one thing you cannot do is just take the reciprocal of this and the reciprocal of this and the reciprocal of this, because it's a bit like square rooting. If you square root both sides, you must square root all of it. So we must take the reciprocal of all of this. So what we could do is we could combine these two fractions together. But the easiest way to get rid of all these denominators is to multiply through by the lowest common multiple, which is x, y, z. So we're going to multiply both sides by x, y, z. Okay, so simply multiply both sides by x, y, z. And this term, and this one here. Now the cancelling. X divided by x is 1. Y divided by y is 1. And z divided by z is 1. So we'll end up with xy minus xz equals xy. Yeah, that's right, sorry. Oh, sorry, this first term here, sorry, is yz, isn't it? That's better. Just put that out. Yz is left here. Yz, that's better. Now we want to get the x terms together, so I'm going to add this xz to both sides. So yz is xy plus xz. Now they're at least on the same side now, and then I can factorize this. So x is common to both of these terms here. So this yz is x brackets y plus z. And now I'm going to divide both sides by y plus z. So x is yz divided by y plus z. Question 11. A cubed x minus b cubed x over 2x plus x equals 4. Now this looks horrible, but it really isn't. If you notice that this numerator here factorizes, what we can do then is to cancel these x's. And now, to get x on its own, we simply subtract whatever's left from both sides. So x is 4 minus a cubed minus b cubed over 2. Question 12. The square root of 1 over x plus 3 equals 5. This is similar to one of the questions we did earlier, remembering that we must subtract this 3 from both sides before we start squaring both sides. So let's do that. Let's subtract 3 from both sides. Now we can square both sides. Get rid of the fractions. Or we could do this. We could write 4 as 4 over 1, and we got one fraction equals another fraction, so we can flip them both over, take the reciprocal of both sides. Now, what you could have done there is multiply both sides by 4, and then divide both sides by 4. Multiply both sides by x, and then divide both sides by 4. Okay. But that's a neat little trick. If you've got a fraction, a whole fraction on both sides, what you can't do is something like this. You cannot flip over fractions like this. Don't do that. Must be a single fraction on both sides. Question 13. 3 over 2, lots of x, minus 5 over 3, lots of x, plus 2 equals 4. These two terms have got an x in them, so let's factorize. Get 3 halves minus 5 thirds. And we're going to subtract 2 from both sides. So we subtract 2 from here and here. We get 2 on the right. Now look at this inside the brackets here. This is just a fraction, subtracting fractions. So let's do that. Lowest common denominator is 6. 2 times 3 is 6, so we multiply that by 3, so we must multiply this by 3, giving 9. 3's into 6 goes twice, multiplied by 2 to get from 3 to 6, so you multiply the top by 2, so that's a 10. So we get x times, and now we've got 9 sixths minus 10 sixths, which is minus 1 sixth, equals 2. So now we can multiply through by 6, and now multiply through by minus 1. So again, if you get minus x equals something, if you want to get x equals, we multiply through by minus 1, and it turns this minus x into x. But we must remember to multiply the whole of the right-hand side by negative 1 as well.